It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater, and welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. I have an incredible guest here today, a woman who is on a journey that touches my heart and is so important for all of us. Wendie Veloz. And Wendie, you're going to make sure I pronounce your name correctly.
It's perfect.
Started her journey from a deep passion for creating equitable, sustainable, scalable solutions for communities. With 20 years of experience as a macro level social worker, advocate, and project manager and strategist, she's seen firsthand the struggles facing companies in truly finding their mission, understanding the values, and aligning with a social impact. So for those of listeners who are followers of Slater's success and followers of her success story, you know, in my heart of hearts, it's really important for me to have our businesses aligned with something that values to us. We do a whole series at the end of the year for nonprofits. Not that we do a lot of work in nonprofits. I just have a strong belief around nonprofits, and we should understand. So Wendie and I, when we were connected, we immediately said, oh my goodness, we have so much to talk about. So Wendie, thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me for the wonderful intro. I'm excited to chat with you today.
I could read, and we all have bios as speakers and podcast guests and hosts, etc. But your background, you spent years in the government in a very different world. So let's get a little of this backstory. What was that like? And then what drove you to start your organization?
Yeah, so I really started out as a macro level social worker out of grad school. I was the first in my family to go to grad school or even college, actually. No one in my family graduated from college. So it was a weird road being a lone ranger, getting to that level of professionalism. And I applied for the Presidential Management Fellowship while I was studying abroad in Africa and came back and just had a job in the government. It wasn't, it was kind of nice.
It's what you do.
Yeah, it was, I'm applying for the job while I'm away and I came back and they interviewed me and there I went. So I went straight from Uganda back here and went straight into the federal government. And it was sort of a surprise that I stayed there for so long, nearly 15 years. But what drove me to that was the idea of helping as many people as possible. And when I was early on in my career, I thought that that was the road to do that. I thought that was the only road where I could help thousands of people every day. And I didn't know about business and I didn't know about starting my own business and that I could still help thousands of people in this capacity too. So over time, that perspective evolved and then I started this business and I didn't want to take away that idea of making an impact, making a difference every day and to being able to pay forward the things that I had helped me get to where I'm at today. And so that was how I shaped the business. And it really was from all the things I learned with my years of training and my years in the government.
So what was the catalyst that worked for you? Because I always say there's always that catalyst, that intersection of what drives us to shift what we're doing on a daily basis to go in a different direction. I know like what my catalyst was. What was yours?
Two things. Well, one was a lot of discomfort. I mean, I think I went through a lot at the end of one of the administrations in the federal government. And then I went to a local government for a while and went through COVID and burnt myself out working COVID in public health. So I was at the end of my rope already as a person. And then I walked into work one day and my job was gone. We had a new leader. She decided to get rid of the executive team, my office, and my contractors, and my job were all gone. And so the second thing was, besides being uncomfortable and burned out, I had no choice. Right. I had to find a job for myself. And I said, well, rather than working on someone else's mission on someone else's terms, why don't I redefine success for myself and work on what I want to work on with my time? And so I built this business around that concept of helping others do the same thing. And after I got to that pivotal point, I realized that more people than you realize are burnt out and needing to make tough choices every day. And wouldn't it be nice if we could all work on something we actually cared about and wanted to do, but on our own terms?
So when you created this, Talk to me about the social impact component and how that aligns, because not everybody, we know B corporations, right? We know there's big brands out there that are 100%, if I shared with Bombas or Toms or things like that, right? What do you see and how do you help?
Yeah, so I work primarily with businesses and nonprofits, and the businesses have to give back to the community. Nonprofits obviously give back to the community every day. And I made that choice of who is my ideal client because there are plenty of coaches, plenty of executive coaches
Yeah.
that work with anyone, any type of business. But there are very few who specialize in this idea of corporate social responsibility, giving back, structuring programs that help the community, not just using your bottom line for yourself. And so, really getting to that triple bottom line, what is the formula for that? How do businesses and nonprofits intersect and build sustainable partnerships? All of these questions ran through my head. And I figured if I can't figure this out for my own business, if I can't structure my own business this way, then I know a lot of other people are struggling with it too. And so I just moved in the direction of creating my own little mini corporate social responsibility program where I give back a certain percentage of my coaching time and my programs for free, but I give them to the entrepreneurs that can afford my services, and not just any entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurs who are giving back to communities in Africa. So they could be a US based organization working in Africa or an African based organization or founder working to help their own people. And they are able to get my services for absolutely free.
Is there an application process? Like, because now it's like, okay, yeah, everybody's like, okay, I'm just going to email Wendy.
Well, that's the beautiful part is they have to really be kind of in my network and referred to me. So I don't advertise this as a come one, come all. I actually invite people to it, and I have parameters around how I do that. And so structuring those parameters really helps me reserve my own energy to continue to give back. And so I'm very particular about those clients that I do take on in my pro bono services. But the most important part is that they've been brought to me with a need from someone in my network.
So, in the clients that you're helping, what are some of the things that you're seeing they're doing in social impact? Enlighten us so we can broaden our horizons and help us as business owners and business leaders think differently.
Oh, I love this question. So, the nonprofits that I work with, they range from arts organizations who are helping build youth development programs in our communities, all the way to people who are working with young babies and early childhood, trying to help build supports for parents and families and communities. So, the range of nonprofits I work with is pretty broad. They don't have to be issue specific. But an example from a business that I really love is actually a barber. And that's a business that you wouldn't traditionally think gives back. But this one client who I will gush on for a moment, he came to me and said, I need to work with this idea of trade and helping people get skills, but not in a traditional way. I'm not a plumber. I'm not someone who's owning a trade school, but I want people to understand that they have the opportunity in barbering. And I want it to be for young people who maybe college isn't for them and they might have a disability or a learning disability or something holding them back with a mental health issue, but they're still really smart kids who could make it in this world. And we need to give them some skills. And he came to me to help him formulate a program to approach a local school. And together, they've actually got grant funding for that program. We were able to structure their budget, structure the whole program, and then they executed it for a year. And they were able to train about 6 or 8 young people in barbering. So it's a really great example of anyone can decide to do this. You don't have to be a specific type of business or a specific type of person. You just have to have that motivation and that idea.
I have so many questions here. So many things are going through my head so fast. What has surprised you in transitioning from a government, day job to being a CEO of a company?
I think what surprised me is that I could do it. I think initially a lot of us are really reluctant to go out on our own. And this is something I see a lot of clients coming to me with that says, yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. And I'm really rooted in the idea of getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. And I thought that I was that kind of person too for a very long time. And as I realized that money and energy work in different ways, and you don't really have to get a paycheck every 2 weeks to be safe, and you can really believe in yourself and follow your own path, those things were new concepts to me. And I think I was really surprised at how much I drank the Kool-Aid. And really now I'm a true entrepreneur that I help other people go through that same transition process. But early on, I think I battled with self-doubt the same way that a lot of people do. And as I saw myself getting small wins and really getting bigger clients, moving the business forward, I realized that I shouldn't be so surprised. I've been successful my whole entire life, but I just had to retrain my brain to think about what is success for me and how do I then lean into the successes I was seeing so that I can create more.
What is the one thing you see in your clients? So, you're referencing self-doubt, which, to be honest, shows up for so many leaders. It's like, am I this person? Am I this leader? Can I be that? Yet, when we're also looking at business, in the business, there's consistencies that show up. What do you see when you're working with your clients as
I
some of
think
their
of
challenges?
Yeah, the challenge that I really work with the most is people who have too many ideas, and they're all really good ones, right? So there's no bad ideas in their brain, but there's not enough energy and there's not enough time, and there are so many other commitments in their lives that they can't pursue all of them at once. And this is really common. People come to me for a process I call idea surgery, so we can dissect what those things are, put them out in a mind mapping format, and help people work through prioritization to get to what are the best uses of my energy. What are the best uses of my time? And how can I be more flexible and honor myself to know what I like and what I don't like? And I think that having a bunch of ideas is great, but if you can't action any of them and you can't move them forward, then the world doesn't benefit from those ideas. So that's the biggest issue I see with a lot of people, not even just my clients, is they sit on those ideas. They think about them and they let them kind of get scary in a way. And the people who move forward past that fear are the people who are really determined to make at least one of those things happen. It doesn't have to be all of them, but at least one of them needs to happen. And so that's usually where I catch people and I see this glimmer in their eye and I said, you know what, let's make that happen together.
As you're scaling your own business, what have you learned?
Oh, I think I've learned a lot of things, but I didn't really understand how businesses were started. You would hear these jobs numbers, especially in the government. You hear these Department of Labor numbers, and they're like, this many jobs were created this month. And I would sit in my desk at the government and be like, was somebody out there just like making jobs? Like,
Right,
how does
right.
this
Like,
work?
where's the conveyor belt? How many people are on the conveyor belt saying, "Okay, I'm going to add this to the right. I'm going to add this," and
Yeah,
at the end, like, "Oh, we have a job."
and what is the formula for that and how does it work? And over time, I realized that scaling businesses is how jobs are created and scaling organizations is how jobs are created. But then it becomes, well, what does it mean to scale? And what are the steps? And how do you do that? And there's no secret formula. It looks a little different for every entrepreneur and every organization. So then it's, well, what are the consistent best practices to do those things and
Ooh,
to get to where we have jobs?
that is the consistent best practices.
Yeah. And so over time, I've learned that there are some consistent things and there are some steps and tools and there are lots of resources. But when I was sitting in the government, I didn't know about those resources. And I think a lot of people don't either, right? They don't know about the Small Business Administration, they don't know about the network of women's business centers. So people maybe think, oh, well, jobs are just poofed out of nowhere, when really the people who are creating the jobs are taking those steps. They're doing the consistent work. They're reaching out to the resources. They're in incubators. There's all these other things that you can do. But as I sat in my government desk, I had no idea that those were even available.
When you think about what we can pass forward to our listeners, and you have a podcast of your own that's called,
The Social Impact Level Up podcast.
and what can our listeners learn from checking it out?
So I tell stories of social entrepreneurs just like me, just like you, who are creating a difference in the world and using their voice, using their story, using their passion to do it. And maybe they don't have a platform. Maybe they don't have a media person who's telling everybody their story or getting them on a bunch of podcasts. I like to look for the little guy who is really transformative, but you never hear about them.
Right.
And over time, what I've learned is that there are a lot of consistencies, but one of them is self care. And so you'll hear me talk a lot about well being and self care and how do we continue to show up to do this work. So, besides whatever that entrepreneur is excelling at and what is their specialty, we also try to be consistent with sharing knowledge about how can we all continue to do better for ourselves so we can do better for other people.
What would be one tip or piece of advice you would pass forward to organizations that are scaling, organizations that are starting to say, Dan, we've talked about having a side of social impact. We talked about the importance of social impact. What's one thing they can do to get started?
So I have this framework I often recommend for people. It's called DPTD, and I just totally made this up, Ivy. It's no way you're not going to find it in a book anywhere. It's called dollars, people, time, and donations. So,
I'm going to slow you down here. Dollars, people, time, and donation.
yep.
I like
So
it.
dollars, what are the dollars that we give to make the world go round, right? We know we use money for a lot of different exchanges, but that's not the only way we can exchange. So people is really about volunteering, physically showing up,
Yep.
shoveling the things, packing the boxes, those types of experiences that we can share to make an impact. And then time is more about the brain space and the ways that we use our professional services in some ways to get those organizations who need help. So that might be a lawyer doing pro bono services. It might be serving on nonprofit boards in our after hours time. So those are the volunteer kinds of things that fall into that time category. And then donations are anything that doesn't fall into the other three. So sometimes that's donating your space, donating goods, donating canned goods. Those are the kinds of things that people can also do. So organizations can frame this for engagement of their employees. They can frame it for reporting out on their social impact metrics. They can also use it to develop a complete corporate social responsibility program and make sure that they're doing a little bit more than just giving dollars.
Wendie, how can our listeners learn more about you and reach out and connect?
Yeah, so I'm very active on LinkedIn and Instagram. You can also find me on all the social media platforms under Wendie Veloz. But listen to the podcast, head to my website, wendieveloz.com. And all of those places have resources and information for social entrepreneurs. But I also have a community where I am collecting people like us so that we can come together and share our stories directly with each other.
I love that. I love building community, being part of community. It's lonely at the top, listeners. It's lonely. And the greatest thing you can do and a great gift that you could give to yourself is embrace yourself with community and with whatever that looks like for you. But don't try to do this alone. Don't torture yourself, right, Wendie?
It's completely unnecessary to think you're the only one who's doing good in the world because you're not. And I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in the work and we feel lonely because we're really so knee deep in what we're trying to do to make an impact that we don't get to look around and see the next person next to us doing the same thing. So that's why it's important to do thought partnership sessions, leadership exchanges, lunch and learns. All of these different things are ways to bring value to each other and build community. So I would encourage people to see, if you don't see it in your area, then just create it yourself and invite people to your table.
I love that. Listeners, this is what I say at this point in her success story. Take a deep breath in. Identify one thing that was an aha or a takeaway from Wendie and I's conversation. What is that one thing for you? Write it down somewhere. That's part of making the commitment to yourself. When I say jot it down, if you're a writer, put it on a piece of paper. If you're a phone person, put it in your phone, put it on your computer. It doesn't matter. Don't get attached to the how, get attached to the do. And then make the decision of what you're going to do with that one piece of information. If every podcast you listen to, at least with her success story, you identify one action you can take, you will stay in consistent action and hence see the results. Thank you for joining Wendie and I here today on her success story. If this was helpful, please pass it forward to friends, colleagues, and family. Hit subscribe. We're in your inbox every Monday morning with new content and great guests, just like Wendie Veloz. Thank you for joining me, Wendie.
Thank you for having me, Ivy.